StutterOn.
Yeah. FA, when when I started in school,
Mm,
I felt the same way. I couldn't read in front of the class. When the
yeah,
teacher asked a question, I couldn't didn't want to put my hand up to answer. And just so you know, I'm originally from Kenya.
okay.
Yeah, so the schools there, when we would read, I'm not sure about here, but you would read a paragraph and you would go down a desk at a time. So the student behind you would read and the student behind you would read, right?
Mm,
I would look ahead and see what paragraph is mine. Like I would count,
yeah,
and I would just start freaking out. So, but for some reason, when as I became older into my teenage years,
mm,
I learned how to hide my stutter. So
sure.
what do I mean by that? You know, avoiding words and things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then pretty much, I'm known as a covert stutterer.
Yep.
So I learned how to avoid those words. I would only say certain things. I would get someone else to speak for me and things like that. But when I would have a conversation, I'd be okay. It was when I had to do something that was in a group of people,
Right.
or talk on the phone even. So when I came to Canada, um, it became worse. Whereas I could hide it in Kenya because I knew everyone, but here it was tough, and so it came back full again. Um, being in a stressful situation
Sure.
on my own as well. So when I was in Canada, and I'm sure that your listeners would understand that being in a stressful situation makes the stutter worse.
Sure.
And so when I went to university, that's when I found speech therapy, because before that I'd never heard about it. And I remember going to a professor in my, I think it was my second year. We had to work on a project, and we had to present it in front of the class. And oh my God, of course, in university, I don't know anyone. I didn't have to talk to anyone. You would go in these
Mm,
huge classes and just sit and go and do your homework and come back, the same thing again. I never joined any associations or anything like that in my first year or two, because again, I was shy, didn't want to talk to anyone.
yeah.
Um, but it was in that class with the professor, I went to his office and I begged him. I said, please, I will come and talk to you and show you my presentation. Do not make me do this in front of the class. I will
Mm-hmm.
not be able to do this.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, well, you sound fine to me right now.
Oh, that is the worst, right?
Yeah. And I said yes, because it's one on one and I can
Yeah.
manage.
Sure.
And he said, well, I'm sorry, I can't give you special treatment.
Oh
Um,
man.
yeah. And I thought, man, he's mean, right?
Yeah.
But that was the turning point for me,
Okay.
because sometimes we feel that, oh, you know what, why doesn't he understand? Because he doesn't stutter and he doesn't know what I'm going through.
Mm-hmm.
um, he's going to fail me because I can't even say a word when I'm in front of the class, right?
Yeah.
um, and so I thought to myself, what am I going to do? I need to pass this class. I have to do the presentation. And that's when someone, I don't know, somewhere told me, that, have you heard of iStar? And I said, what's iStar? And it's the Institute of Stuttering Treatment and Research. And it was
Okay.
right on campus. And I thought, oh. And so I think someone showed me the way. And so I went and I talked to someone there. And um, that's what they told me, that I was a covert stutterer, that when I speak to
Mm,
someone, I'm okay. But when I have to present or be in a group, it just comes on full blown and I can't help it.
Mhm.
So so we did fluency skills. I learned fluency skills, but I don't know about you, Fa, but in my mind, when I thought about fluency skills,
Mhm.
I thought that I would be cured in 3 to 6 weeks.
Yeah. So no, I've definitely had ridiculous ideas like that in my head before. I would say I grew up most of my life at least wishing and hoping that one day this would just like leave and I would be cured. Like, I've had every thought in my head, just in my state of unhappiness. I've thought, maybe if I was in a car crash and I hit my head, and by the time I woke up, this thing will be gone and I would
Wow.
be fluent. I've thought all kinds of things. Now, so what you're telling me is that this fluency program essentially gave you the t- techniques to help you be fluent, because I don't hear you stuttering virtually at all.
Yes, yeah, you're right. When I tell people that I stuttered, they now it's hard for them to believe me.
Yeah,
But I know what it feels like. I
sure.
just told you how I felt like just reading
Yeah.
in class and speaking. So I know what that feels like because I've been there. But you're right. I virtually don't stutter. Um, but I will tell you that the fluency skills are are the tools in a toolbox. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, one thing I figured out is that after I was done with their program, so they make you go out and practice the fluency skills. They make you do a speech in front of everyone, and then you graduate from the program.
Okay.
Uh, but that's when I thought, okay, now I can go into the real world and, hey, be fluent. Boy, was I wrong. As soon as I got into the quote unquote real world, um, my stuttering came back again, and I thought, what is going on? And you see, it's how we have trained ourselves to step into that fear, right?
Mm.
The same things where I would be so scared to go through a drive-through. I tried going through one again using my fluency skills, and I couldn't. I tried to order a pizza over the phone. I couldn't even do that still. Like I was still scared, and I would still go back to the mindset of what if I stutter? What if I stutter? Right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And then I remember after a week or two, I went back to the Institute of Stuttering Treatment and Research because they wanted to find out how I was doing. So I had to go back and I told my speech therapist, I say, this fluency skills, man, like I thought I'd be cured.
Mm.
I'm trying to go out there and do the things you taught us to do, like order over the phone, talk to someone on the phone, pick up the phone and ask them questions, which, by the way, as you know, the phone weighs 1,000 pounds when you're trying to do that.
Hmm.
Um, and that that again was the pivotal moment in my life when she looked at me and she said, you have two options. The first option is that the fluency skills is not a cure, it's a tool. You have to use the tools every day for the rest of your life in order to be fluent. She said, or the second option is, um, give it up and stay where you are or feel the fear and keep on stuttering. And I thought, whoa.
Yeah.
For a like my jaw just dropped at that point because she was showing me two options in my life, right? I could use the fluency skills which they gave me and keep on practicing and practicing, um, or I could just basically stay where I am. And I remember walking out of that office, and it was a nice summer day. And like I I was in this hypnotic state almost, where I walked out and I just stared at the grass below me, and I thought to myself, what did she just say? And I was just trying to process that. And I
Mm,
realized that in order for me to um, achieve my dreams, to not be in fear anymore, I really have to take this seriously and practice it like anyone else would want to do something really bad. And
yeah.
that became my mission. And FAI would practice those fluency skills like the in those days, like this was 1995. I'm talking about 94. They
Uh-huh.
they gave us a tape, a cassette tape to play, so we could um, follow along to what the person was saying, and really use those gentle starts, like,
Yeah.
well, right? So you don't stutter on the, so it's not, so it's my name. And I had to do that. Um, or the prolong, right? Like take your time, or the breath in the beginning,
Yeah.
and all those things. And I would play it when I would drive to university in my car or in my Walkman at that time. Um, and over and over and over again. Um, and that's what I kept on doing. But, again, I couldn't speak like the way I'm speaking right now. It took me, I would say, doing those fluency skills, of course, getting a job. I remember my job, I couldn't answer the phone when on the first day. My first thought was, what if I stutter? What if they don't
Yep.
understand me?
Yeah, it's
Uh,
always there, right?
yeah, it's always there, and you're always thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
Even when I met my husband, talking, I thought, what if he doesn't like me? What if he thinks I'm a freak? Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Um, uh, and 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 he accepted, and I told him, this is about, this is what it is. Sometimes, even like yesterday, we were having breakfast, Fa,
Mm-hmm.
and I was explaining to him about something that happened at work, and I stuttered on a word, and I thought, wow, I haven't stuttered for a while,
Yeah.
and it just popped up out of nowhere. And but I didn't feel shy anymore, of course, like he knows
Yeah.
who. And yeah, so what I'm trying to say is, it took a long time for me to get to where I am today. But at the same time, I also decided that day when I walked out of her office, I decided that I was going to face my fear on one step at a time. So, baby steps. So, for example, if I couldn't, like at that time, I could never ask anyone the time. Now, I never wore a watch, I still don't.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, I just didn't like wearing a watch because it would
Sure.
always break on me. So so I would either, now in those times, either we didn't have smartphones, right? Like we had those big flip phone phones, and
Oh
I
yeah.
never, yeah. So I could never work, and so I thought, okay, you know what? I could never ask the time because I would stutter on the word time. Um, so I remember going to a mall and asking strangers, "What's the time?" But I would take my time in saying the word time, like time, with a gentle start. And I
Yeah.
kept on doing that until I felt comfortable that I could say the word time, and then the next thing, and then the next thing.
Now, when you because I did speech therapy when I was younger. I'd say I was in my late teens, maybe like 19, and I'm aware of the slow, easy start and the breathing. Um, did you ever feel like it wasn't you speaking, like it wasn't natural? Because that's kind of, I think that's why most people don't um remain with all the techniques, because
Mm,
all the techniques don't really promote I don't know, you speaking in a tone or a voice that's natural. And I think that was also my problem. it really didn't feel like me, and I think most people get frustrated because they just want to speak effortlessly like everyone
Mm-hmm.
else does. So they get frustrated and they say, "Well, why do I have to do this?"
Mm. Yeah. No, you're right. And I explained that I think in my TEDx talk as well that I did on how I went from stuttering to standing ovations.
Mhm.
Where it was really weird that this wasn't myself, that I don't sound like this, and it was frustrating, completely frustrating that I had to sound that way. But I always had to remind myself about about the dream that I wanted was to be fluent, and if I had to do this for a little bit, or for a long time until I can um, do what I want, it it just had to be. I just had to stick with it. And I
Sure.
like and I kind of liken this to going to the gym, right? Um, some people have dreamed to build that muscle or to build that nice body, right?
Yeah.
And they'll do anything to get there, right? They'll eat well and they'll run in the morning, or they'll go and do those weights and they'll keep at it. And it takes a while to build those muscles. It doesn't come right away. you
Sure.
you don't see it right away either. Um, so it's the same way of thinking about your speech. It will not happen right away. I mean, I can tell you it took me 10 years, and I say 10 years because yeah, I was kind of 2021 there, and then I went on to of course, work, and I still stuttered there. Met my
Mhm.
husband, I got married. I couldn't pray, so of course we pray every day.
Mhm.
I couldn't pray in front of his parents. I would tell him, "Don't make me pray in front of them," because I would stutter. But
Yeah.
then I realized I can't keep doing this. And so I would practice with him at home, and I'd say, okay, I'm going to use my fluency skills, and it's going to
Oh,
take
that's cool.
longer. Yeah,
Oh, that's really cool.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And I'd say you have to be prepared. I'm going to take very long, but you have to support me in this. And he would be like, "Yep, sure." And then I would do use my fluency skills on purpose when I would pray. And then I got really good, and I said, "Okay, now I feel comfortable. Now I
Yeah,
can
that
pray."
I feel like that matters so much. Just having somebody there who
Mm.
knows, who you can walk to and just tell them, "Hey, I need to work on this, or I have this problem." It helps a lot just to have someone there to be able to share it with.
Yes, and he has been so supportive throughout, whether it is um, stutter, whether it's my career, whether it's the business that I am in. He's always been supportive, and I don't know if I call it luck or actually looked for it.
Yeah. Probably a little bit in the both, right?
Yeah, yeah. And But that's what you need to look for, is that support. Even in your family, I'm sure some of us out there, right? Like, we've got family who of course know that we stutter, but just
Mhm.
having one of the family members just being that person to support you.
Yeah.
For me, it was I do have siblings,
Mhm.
but I find that my mother was more of the person who was there for me, that I could talk to
Sure.
and tell her that this is what I'm doing. Can I practice? Can I do this? So, but she wasn't with me here in Canada. She's still in Kenya, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, just talking on the phone with her, and it it really helped.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Um Now, what do you think about the movement in the stuttering community, um that leaning towards, I don't know what the technical term for, but it kind of leans towards like non-fluency,
Hmm.
where I think the idea is, It probably came out of a lot of people having a hard time achieving fluency because I think you are rare as a person, right? Like the idea that you stuttered as a child and mostly as an adult, and you put in the work and the time to eventually become mostly fluent, I think that's a rare thing. I don't hear that a lot. I've been hearing it a lot more recently, but it's not a common thing. Most
Mm.
people that I speak to don't ever really get over it. I've met a lot of people who stutter into their, well into their golden age. The stutter might not be as strong at that age. It might be, but I think your story, whether it's hard work or not, I think it's really hard to accomplish.
Yeah.
So what do you think about just the movement of not trying to achieve fluency at all and just being okay with who you are stuttering?
Yeah. That's a great question. And when you say that I'm rare, yeah, I've met others. So there is a speaker in Toronto. He stuttered, and now he's this mega speaker. And I don't know how he overcame it. I haven't really. I kind of wanted to talk to him about it, but time flew, and it just didn't work out for us. I've met another speaker in the U.S. He's now retired, but he stuttered, and but he loved speaking and he loved to motivate people. And there were times that he could speak for a few sentences and then he would stutter in the next couple of words, and then he would speak for a few sentences, but it never bothered him.
Mm,
So I think when you ask me, what do you think about the movement? I've heard about the movement at one of the conferences. Uh, and I was surprised to hear that, because of course where I came from, they talked about fluency and
mm,
they said, oh no, it's good. And I also met another person from the UK. His name's Alan. He was a police officer, and his whole career he just hated stuttering, because being a person of authority and then stuttering, how does that go? Like he felt he wasn't um, able to do
sure.
his job well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he found something similar to iStar, that is used in the UK and in the US. I forget what it is, but it's based on fluency skills and going out there and facing your fears. So you had to speak in a crowd, you had to do all those kinds of things. And he said that was the best thing that ever happened. And now when you speak to him, he doesn't stutter. And so it's almost like facing that fear. So when you talk about non fluency, if there's two dimensions to it, I think
Mm-hmm.
that if you are okay with it and it doesn't put you in a fearful mode, or you just you it just doesn't bother you, then I think it's okay. And over time you figure out that, yeah, there's some words you stutter on and there's some words you don't, and people just have to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
But if the other dimension is that there's still some people um, uh, who, if they go towards this movement of, yeah, I'll continue to stutter, but then they still feel not themselves in front of people, where they still feel embarrassed. They are thinking in their head, what are they thinking about me? And if that cognitive mindset of being in fear all the time is still there, I don't know if that works.
Sure. Yeah.
Does it make sense?
No, no, you're absolutely correct. Yeah. I feel like if it bothers you that much, you should be proactive or get to the point where you're okay w- w- with it. Yeah.
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 I mean, I know for me, and I think it depends on the belief systems that we hold, right? uh, like I found that the movie the King's Speech really spoke
Mhm.
to me, right?
Yeah.
Spoke to a lot of us.
Sure.
Um, where this guy's the king, people have to listen to him, and in his head he thought that the two don't align. How can I be a king who doesn't know how to speak? How am I going to move my country to another level? How are they going to take me seriously, right?
Sure.
Uh, and I think also at that time, of course, was the what's the word I'm looking for? The stereotyping, right?
Yeah.
Uh, that people who stutter are like I know about me, or in the movies when you saw that they're dumb or they don't know what they're talking
Usually,
about, right?
sure. Or it could be simpler than that. They could just be like clumsy, or there is
Mm.
always some kind of underlying problem that they have.
Yeah, yeah. So I could see that in the movie The King's Speech, where he thought to himself that there's this stereotyping out there about if I stutter, there's something wrong with me. How can I be king, right? And so he took that time to get the fluency and all that because it changed his belief system, right? That if I did this, I can be better as a king. And so I think it really comes down to what you believe about yourself.
Yeah,
If you believe that you stutter and this is who you are, and I'm completely okay with that. It's a part of who I am, and you've accepted that and you believe that really strongly, then hey, I think the movement is great for you.
sure.
Uh, but if you believe that it doesn't align with your individuality of who you are, um, and it keeps bothering you, then there is options. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, what other kind of techniques did you learn at High Star?
Uh, the so I think the I like the way that they just don't teach you the fluency skills, but they make you go out there and do it. So we would form groups and go and order in a mall. Like if you want food, right? You want to go
Mhm.
and order. I know in the past, I would just point at the combo that I wanted or something.
Yeah, or you would say number 2.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to say the whole thing.
Yeah.
Um, that's why I like going to eat Chinese because they just want numbers.
Oh, they do, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. They almost don't want you to, like,
yeah,
pronounce the long name of it.
yeah, yeah. They know. They're like, what number?
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
It's
so,
true.
so yeah. So then they would take you to these places, and you would have to say it out. Like you would have to say what you want.
Okay.
We went out for, I think, for lunch or dinner. So it was like dining, and then you would have to say out what you wanted, which were great because those are the kinds of things I didn't do before. You had to pick up the phone and order something, or pick up the phone and phone a business and ask a question. Um, so those are the kinds of things that I find. I don't know if other people or like other agencies do that,
Mhm.
but I found that really helpful. And then of course I spoke about Alan before from the UK who did something similar, and they were told to go out in a crowd and start speaking in front of a crowd.
Wow.
Like just facing those fears, because that's what has stopped us in the right in the past, where
Yeah.
where you go, I can't do that, and you just avoid it. And
Sure.
so they ask you to go and face your fear and do it, and that euphoria that you feel after that, you know what, it is doable, I can do this. And so it really breaks those barriers that you had before, and it starts to change the belief system that you hold about yourself. And I think that's um, the point where you start to say, if I can do this, what more can I do?
So here's here's like at the root of why I find what you're saying fascinating, and just the idea that you could get to a point where you're fluent
Mm,
from where most of us are as children. Here's why I think it's amazing, because it makes me question the belief that stuttering is neurological.
mm,
Because if stuttering is neurological and it's essentially things happening in the brain or brain waves, or maybe like your brain's the speech centers in your brain, if we're saying that that's the main component of stuttering, we shouldn't be able to get to, let's say a 90% to 95% fluency rate if it's if there's an issue in the brain, right? We shouldn't be able to reach that from techniques. So
mm.
that's why I think it's amazing to me, because com- you know we know so little about it already. We know so little about stuttering, and I think right now the main idea is that it's neurological, some of it's genetic, some of it's environmental, some of it's stress based, right? There's all these components, but I
Yes.
think most people are in agreement that it's a neurological problem. But if I'm listening to what you're saying and to what other people have told me who stuttered and are now fluent, that can't be true, right?
Yeah, so I think there when someone stutters, I think it's either um like some of the studies say it could be based on something that has happened in the brain, right?
Hmm.
Um, or for me, it wasn't something in the brain. It was something that happened when I was 5 years old. So an experience at that time that I found traumatic, I believe um, that the safety net for me to create was to stutter and say that there's something wrong with me, so I wouldn't have to deal with it at that point. So mine was more um, based on my emotion and the experience I was going through. And the experience was not, now that I look back at it, I thought, like, I'm thinking to myself, why did I do that at that point? But of course, as a child, it was scary for me. So what had happened was I was in kindergarten, and they were doing a pilot where the top five in the class that were showing a lot of maturity, smarts, things like that. They wanted us to skip grade one and go into grade two. Okay. And so five, I think there were five or seven of us. So they decided to do that. Now, of course, they had to speak to the parents and so on. And I still remember this, that they came and talked to my mother and said, your daughter is the top five. She's very mature. She's very smart for her age. We know she can do really well in grade two. And I could hear all this. I knew this was happening. And I could see that my mother was very confused at that time, and she was thinking, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I? A part of her, and we've had this conversation, just so you know, because I asked my mom, I said, you know, when I think about when I stuttered, when I started, was it around the age when I skipped grade one? And she said, yes. Before that, you never stuttered. And she said, I blame myself for that. And of course, we had a conversation and we went deeper into that. And I said, I don't blame you, so stop doing that. And I said, you as a mom, at that point, you thought what would be the best for me. And you were proud that you had a daughter who was smart and who could do this. So I would. if I was in your place, I probably would have done the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Um, so so she said that was the moment that you started to stutter. Um, and I have done a lot of NLP. So NLP stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming.
Okay.
It's, yeah, I don't know if you've heard about it, Fa.
I heard you talking about it, and it was one of the things that I wrote, and I wanted to ask you about it, what when
Yeah,
it was, and
yeah. So it's based on neurolinguistics, which is the way we process our thinking is the way
yeah.
we're going to behave, and the way we're going to believe things, and it's all connected.
Now
Um,
that was the demonstration that you gave with the chairs,
yeah, that's right.
right?
In
Yeah.
the TEDx talk, yeah. So how our environment and the way we is just going to affect our behavior and the way
Mm,
we think and the way we believe,
sure.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
So when I was doing my NLP classes, there was a lot of one-on-ones that we had to try on each other.
Hmm.
And one of the things I really wanted to find out was why I started stuttering. Like that was at the forefront of my mind.
Yeah.
And so there was something is what we call walking the timeline. Walking the timeline from the time that you want to talk about the trauma to now and then looking back at it. And so I did that. And at that point, I never realized that that was the trauma, was that at 5 years old. It was that's when I realized it. And that's after that was when I talked to my mom about it.
Yeah.
And she actually validated that, yes, that was the time. Um, but what I realized by doing that timeline
Mm,
was I had, because I didn't want to skip grade one and go into grade two, I didn't want to lose my friends behind and be this in this class where it's going to be extra hard for me to work now. There is this expectations on me that because I'm smart, I have to be smarter and I have to be hard, like, work harder. I cannot fail,
yeah.
right? So all these expectations were on me. And so I thought, hey, if I show them there's something wrong with me, I can stay in grade one.
Yeah.
And I believe that that's what happened to me. I started stuttering. And I know this may
Wow.
sound a little bit freaky or something, different or like woo
No.
woo, you know,
No.
um, but that's what I kind of realized that I think that's why it happened. But the funny thing is that out of the five of us, two of us stuttered when that
Uh,
happened.
oh.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting? My older brother also stutters too.
Oh,
And yeah, so I was born we like I was we're from Nigeria.
yeah.
So I was the only one of my siblings that was actually born there. All everybody else was born in New York, and but we grew up there. So my sister was telling me that we used to travel b- back and forth, and I think she told me that me and my brother, we were here when we were younger. I think she said he was around 8 years old. I was around five. So we
Mm-hmm.
were here, and then we traveled back home. And I believe she told me that was when she realized that we stuttered. So
Mm.
from the period that we left, me and him were okay. Like we spoke fluently. And
Oh,
then when we were here, something happened. There was a change. Something happened here. And then by the time we went back home, everybody could pick up that we had changed. Like we both stuttered. And she
mm.
mentioned it that my father was noticeably like mad about it. Like what happened
Oh,
there? Yeah. So that's it's interesting because there's so little we know about it, and I've heard that it could be caused by trauma, and then I've heard that no, it's usually not caused by trauma, but it can be in a small percentage of people. And when I heard you say that, it just reminded me of
Hmm.
how quickly it can, it's like one day it's not there, and then one day it just is. And yeah.
Did you see that YouTube video of Tony Robbins helping that individual who stuttered?
No.
Oh, okay. Make sure you search for it on YouTube.
Okay.
Just search for Tony Robbins
Sure.
helping stutter or something along those lines.
Okay.
Um, and basically, you will see that he now, just so you know, that Tony Robbins' background is also NLP.
Hmm.
So I was shocked to see that as well. And this was just recently that I saw the video. And he figures out where the guy or the person himself figures out when he started stuttering. And it was in his childhood when he didn't want to hear his parents fight or something like that,
Yeah.
and he started stuttering at that point so that the attention would be drawn away from fighting to him or something like that. And
Hmm.
Tony Robbins changes his belief system, and the guy can then speak in front of a whole crowd after. It's amazing
Yeah.
video. You should watch it.
Oh, okay. I'll check it out. Yeah, that's. I mean, I I I believe almost anything at this point, because I think everybody's path is different, and we kind of arrive at stuttering. Um, it's never the same path. Like I don't remember a lot about when I was that age, young, but I can imagine stuttering back home must have been hard. Just because of the kind of place it is and the expectations of masculinity. Do you remember growing up in Kenya? What was that like?
Yeah, it it's interesting that you say that about masculinity because yes, I know my father. There was this cultural belief that if you're a big man, and by big I mean with a belly,
Yeah. Okay.
that means you have a lot of money, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So basically, being a little bit obese is a good thing.
Mm.
Uh, but of course, now it's not that way. Now it's changed. So the
Mm.
culture belief has changed that if you're if you have a belly or if you're a little bit obese, it doesn't mean that you're rich. It just means that you don't eat well. But that was what it was growing up. With stutter, uh, the cultural belief was that that there's something wrong in your brain, basically. Um, I remember in Kenya in school, this one time, uh, I think I was 14, 15, somewhere there. And I was really good at writing. And of course, I still am. I like to blog, I like to write.
Yeah.
Uh, and I wrote this amazing essay or something like that. And the teacher, like, I got the highest marks, and the teacher really wanted me to read it out aloud in class. And I told her, no, no, I'm not going to read it out aloud in class. And she goes, no, you have to. You'll be okay. You don't worry. And on and on. And she called me up, and I started reading, and I couldn't get the words out. I got stuck, and
Mm.
just couldn't say anything. And the look on her face was what I still remember up to now, that she was in shock, and she was just staring at me like,
Yeah.
who is this person,
Mm.
and I think she was shocked that here is someone that maybe in her mind she's thinking, she wrote such a good essay, but she can't even talk about it. um, she's not dumb,
Yeah.
but yet she stutters, you know.
Yeah.
And then her look changed to that of feeling sorry for me,
Yep.
so it changed from shock to sorry. And then she told me, okay, stop, give me your essay and I'm going to read it for you.
Oof.
And that has stayed with me up to now. And it's just something that uh, I know I don't stutter right now. I mean, of course I do sometimes. I know I really do when I'm tired.
Mm.
I still, when we have Skype calls at work, like we now have meetings at work over Skype, um, my heart still races, because if I have to say something, I'm scared that I hope it doesn't come out as a stutter. But when I start speaking, I'm okay. I really take my time to slow down my speech,
Yeah.
and to really make note of the way I'm saying things. Like I'll take those gentle starts and everything. Even now, FA, even now, I do that. So that doesn't mean that I've overcome it. I'm just being consciously aware of when I need to use it.
Yeah. So you mentioned you have a job. Is
Mhm.
that separate from your business, from your
Yeah.
online? Okay. Tell me a little bit about that and what it's like. Obviously you don't have to get into too much detail about the place, but
Yeah, no, that's fine. Um, so with the business, it's basically speaking. Since I one of my fears that I wanted to overcome was public speaking,
mhm.
and I started out small in little groups where I would sell skincare. Uh,
Mhm.
and I thought this is one way of getting my fear out. And so I would do that. And then I got better and better. And then from there, I said, okay, I want to teach something now. And so it went from there. So it was only back in 2000, no, 2016, um, 2014, 15, 16, somewhere there, where I decided, you know what, I really like doing this. And so I hired a coach who could help me come up with my area of expertise. And so I
Yeah.
speak on resilience.
Yeah.
And so that's my side gig.
Yeah.
um, my job, I worked part-time until this year with public health. And right now, of course, we're so busy with COVID 19.
Yeah.
Um, and so just in March, I was asked to go full time because they really needed the help. And my manager was retiring. And so he made me acting manager. Uh,
Congratulations.
Thank
Nice.
you. So I just finished my acting manager, because we got about 8 to 10 weeks to do that, and then they wanted to give chance to someone else, and which is good because it makes you wonder whether you want to be a manager or not.
Yeah, sure.
um, so that was fun. And so I'm actually a public health inspector.
Oh,
uh,
okay.
yeah, so imagine, right? So when I was telling you earlier, like my first day on the job, I didn't want to answer the phone,
Yeah.
but I had to. And yeah, so I've been doing this what for 17, 18 years, and I do love it. I do like meeting people and talking to them about how they can improve so that they can uh, protect the health of the public.
Yeah.
Just so you know, when I first started, I couldn't even say public because of the word P. I would
Yeah.
stutter on that. So I would say health inspector because I knew I could breathe on the word health, and I could do a gentle start, but I could never say public before.
Yeah.
But now I can because I've practiced and practiced.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you find that wearing a face mask, does it make your speech, do
Hmm.
you kind of go back to your old stuttering ways, or is it okay? Because I've spoken to a lot of people who stutter, who say
Mm.
that the mask makes it worse. Some people say that, like for me personally, I like wearing the mask because it's a little bit of protection.
Mm.
When I stutter or I block, I feel like with the mask on and they don't see my mouth and my lips, they don't real they may, but they don't know exactly what's happening, or it may be a little harder for them to like know what's happening underneath the mask. So just a
Mm.
little added layer of like protection on me. I don't think it makes my stuttering worse, but I've spoken to people who have told me that it makes it worse.
That is interesting. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I would have never thought, yeah, that a mask would make it worse.
Yeah. I
Maybe I,
mean, I think some people describe it as like it's this extra thing on their face that they have to worry about.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, to me, I haven't. I just look at it as protection.
sure.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Um, you spoke a lot about your parents.
Mm.
How were they when you were a child? With your speech, were they supportive? Were they like, cause I don't really. I mean, I've spoken to my parents about it now at this point, but I've always, it must be hard because everybody wants their child to be strong and healthy,
Mm.
and I think no one ever prepares you for stuttering as a parent. Like you don't expect it, it doesn't mean your kid isn't strong or healthy, but it's this weird thing that parents don't really know what to do or how
Yeah.
to help their child with, and you never expect it. So like how were your parents?
Yeah. Uh, so my father, and you're so right, Fa, where they say that they feel like they really want to help you, but they don't know what
Mm-hmm.
to do.
Yep.
Um, eh, it's like a child being sick, right? They don't
Yeah.
like you being sick.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so with my father, he was the typical father where he wasn't really involved with the children, like just,
Okay.
kind of work, come home and watch soccer.
Yeah, yeah. Sure.
um my mother was more involved. I mean, even though she did work as well, full time, like they had their own business and everything. um but one thing about my mother was that she would always tell me, and I think that was a part of who I am today as well, I guess, is she would always say, never let anything stop you, you know uh don't let the stutter stop you from doing what you want. uh and then she would talk about her life and tell me, look, this didn't stop me from doing this or that, right?
Yeah.
And coming from Kenya, especially how she grew up, a lot of women would be stay-home moms. She's never been a stay-home mom. She's always had her own business. She would always like she was the boss,
Yeah.
basically. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I think seeing her as my role model, that if she can do this, then I can as well,
Yeah.
was a big way of about the way I live. Okay.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned how I went through cancer before.
Yeah.
And that was again because I've seen her go through a lot of hardship, and to me, I go, well, if she can do that, then I can do that. So I think because of her as well, I told myself, if she can achieve so much in life, then I can too, if I just work hard at being fluent, right?
Yeah.
So I think that was something. Now that I'm talking to you, it's coming to me, but I never
Yeah.
thought of this before. Just so you know, it's
Yeah.
just coming right now.
Yeah.
Um, So for her being a big part of my life and just supporting me, kind of pushing me sometimes too, if I didn't want to speak or order something, she would say, just try, just try.
Mhm.
Just say this word. Or if I didn't want to pray, because we would pray every day, and the way we pray is out aloud, and only one person has to do it while the others listen.
Okay.
So I would always say, no, please don't ask me today, don't ask me today, even though we were just home, right? um, and she would say, just try, and if you can't, then I'm going to take over, but just do this much. So I think just that pushing me and telling me that I could do it is a big thing.
Yeah. Well, um, I'm not very good at talking to people because I've avoided it for such a long time. So I don't really know what you would say, but I guess I want to tell you congratulations um, on being a breast cancer survivor.
Thank
I'm
you.
I'm glad to have you here and strong and healthy and speaking to me.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Um, I think we can wrap it up here.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah, it's been
gonna.
wow, an hour.
Yeah, yeah, it has. What before you go, tell me a little bit about your podcast, Thriving Life.
Right. So it's a podcast that I did, but I've kind of stopped doing it now,
Okay.
just because it's been a little difficult for me to do the juggling the two things.
Yeah.
Um, so I did start it. It's called Thrive in Life. Amazing guests that have gone through some kind of trauma and have come through, or even just experts who know what they're talking about. Um, so yeah, so that's you can get that on my website, and my website is just zaheennanji.com. So it's just my name.
Okay.
And the TEDx talk as well is on the About Me page, and I talk about um, how how my speech uh, affected me at one point, but stutter is also in metaphorically, it's also in the mind of people where they use barriers to stop themselves from moving forward.
Okay. Yeah. Very, very, very good. Thank you so much, Zaheen. It
Thank
was
you.
really a pleasure talking to you, and I appreciate. It's it's so strange when you email a stranger to do this, and they're like, "Oh yeah, sure." So thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me on your show, and I hope that your listeners gain something out of it.
I'm sure they will.
StutterOn.